Hello, my name is Mike Taylor. I work as a contractor for NASA as an outreach scientist on the Landsat Communications and Public Engagement team. In this video, I will be discussing a few basics on how we are able to use Landsat satellite data to help with agriculture and introducing a new do-it-yourself handheld spectrometer called Stella. I'm going to start by building a foundation with a quick review of the electromagnetic spectrum and light. If you've got this part licked, please feel free to skip ahead. Here is an infographic of the EM spectrum. Electromagnetic energy travels in waves and spans a broad spectrum from very long radio waves to very short gamma rays. The human eye can only detect only a small portion of this spectrum called visible light. For now, we are going to focus on the visible portion of the spectrum, which is made up of all the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. When sunlight hits the Earth, the light is either reflected or absorbed. Knowing what light will get reflected or absorbed is not enough information for scientists. We want to measure how much reflection or absorption is occurring. We can do that by using a spectrometer to get measurements and mapping out the measurements in what's called a spectral signature. Everything has its own unique spectral signature, which I like to describe as fingerprints, but for light. Landsat satellites look at Earth in a few ranges of the EM spectrum called bands. The latest Landsat satellite, Landsat 9, launched September 27, 2021, has 11 spectral bands. It collects data of Earth's landscapes in visible, near-infrared, and shortwave infrared light, and the thermal sensor measures the temperature of land surfaces. We can composite these bands into images, enabling us to see that which we couldn't using just visible light. Notice the contrast of the bare fields versus the fields with crops, the contrast of the city versus the vegetation, and water versus vegetation or city when using near-infrared and/or the shortwave infrared bands to make a composite. These images are made with measurements from Landsat satellites, and while they are pretty and we can discern some things from the imagery alone, we can get even more from the data. In order to help gain a better understanding of the benefits of measuring various electromagnetic wavelengths, our team put together this do-it-yourself handheld spectrometer called Stella. It is a pared-down Landsat analog sporting thermal, optical, and environmental sensors. Typically, I use it to show the difference between healthy vegetation and stressed or dying vegetation. As a low-cost, scientifically meaningful instrument, it will offer new tools for science efforts to measure ecological processes at a potentially large number of locations and timescales. You saw earlier in the video where we were able to differentiate the vegetation depending upon their measurements and their spectral signature. But did you know we can also determine their health as well? One way we do this is from how well they reflect near infrared. A healthy leaf reflects NIR greater than a stressed or dying leaf. Plants will often show response to damage or disease in near-infrared images before the same response is visible with a color image. In other words, using near-infrared, we can detect stressed or dying vegetation generally better than human eyes. Knowing we can discern different types of vegetation, their health, and other beneficial information from the wavelengths they reflect and absorb. Agriculture and Landsat go hand in hand. Here are some exciting examples of Landsat being used in agriculture. Tracking status of nation's food supply. Since 2009, the National Agricultural Statistics Service, or NASS, has drawn on Landsat data to monitor dozens of crops, including corn, wheat, soy, and cotton in the lower 48 states as part of NASS's Cropland Data Layer program. Rick Moeller, head of USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service, or NASS, Spatial Analysis Research Section, and manager of the Cropland Data Layer program in Washington, says during abnormal growing seasons or natural disasters, satellites shine. Landsat is a robust and independent way to validate what our statistics are telling us. The cropland data layer uses Landsat and similar sensors to identify what is growing where. Separately, NAS uses NASA's Moderate Resolution Imaging Spectroradiometer, or MODIS, instruments aboard Aqua and Terra satellites to monitor daily vegetation health and growth stage, all indicators of crop yield. OpenET, a satellite-based water data resource. Evapotranspiration, or ET, is a term used to refer to the combined processes by which water moves from the Earth's surface into the atmosphere. It covers both water evaporation and transpiration. ET is an important part of the water cycle, and measurement of it plays a key role in agricultural irrigation and water resource management. OpenET uses open source models and Google Earth Engine to provide satellite-based information on water consumption in areas as small as a quarter of an acre at daily, monthly, and yearly intervals. Until OpenET, there was no single low-cost operational system for measuring and distributing evapotranspiration data at the scale of individual fields across the western United States. The majority of the models included in the OpenET platform are based on the energy balance approach. This approach relies on satellite measurements of spectral reflectance. That would be the amount of light energy reflected off the land surface measured in specific wavelengths, and surface temperature combined with ground-based measurements of other key variables that govern the surface energy exchange. Shoring up the Corn Belt's soil health. Satellites provide big-picture insights. Stanford University postdoctoral researcher and NASA Harvest partner Jillian Daines used a combination of machine learning and data from Landsat, MODIS, and ESA's Sentinel-1 to examine conservation tillage's impacts on yield across the Corn Belt. Between 2005 to 2017, she found long-term low-till fields experienced an average yield increase of 3.3% and 0.74% for corn and soybeans respectively. Other researchers are building tools to support farmers with the transition and management. Caillou Guan, of University of Illinois professor and computational environmental scientist, also working with NASA Harvest, built a model that marries Landsat, MODIS, and ESA's Sentinel-2 observations to create a deep data record integrated with information on soil and weather. The model leverages a field's history to make informed decisions. Guan likened the effort to medicine, where patients receive individualized prescriptions. Satellite data helps us understand the field conditions and history and provide a customized prescription, he said. Range and Analysis Platform. Researchers from the University of Montana released a new online program known as the Rangeland Analysis Platform, or RAP, as an innovative rangeland monitoring tool that uses Landsat imagery. This online platform allows users to track changes in vegetation and bare ground cover over a landscape from 1984 to the present at 30-meter resolution pixels. Researchers developed this program by correlating values from satellite images with rangeland monitoring information at over 31,000 data points throughout the western USA. The combination of data from satellites and on-the-ground points allowed the researchers to develop algorithms that annually estimate the cover of perennial plant, annual plant, shrub, tree, and bare ground cover across a landscape. For rangeland managers, there are many potential applications for this program. For example, the program can track the expansion of eastern red cedar into grasslands in central and eastern Nebraska and provide managers visual and numerical estimates of tree cover increases over time or decreases because of specific management practices. Managers can also identify pasture areas with greater amounts of bare ground and incorporate those into management plans that address opportunities to increase cover of perennial grass species. These are just a few examples of the multitude of benefits Landsat and other satellites help provide. Thank you.